A few days after we moved into our new house, the doorbell rang loudly. I opened the door, and it swung open quickly. "Why haven't you invited us over after moving into your new house?" My mother-in-law was standing there. Behind her, my husband Daniel was pushing me inside. I was surprised, but more so because my mother-in-law walked right in without asking. "It's a nice house with a garden." "Surprising, since you're not great at keeping things tidy, but I guess you've done okay." "Where's my room?" "This one gets a lot of sunlight." I had to hold back a laugh at how cheerful and carefree she was. I thought, we're not that close. "You don't get a room here, asterisk." "What? You can't say things like that to family. If you apologize now, I'll forgive you. Otherwise, I'll divorce you." Daniel yelled at me, his face red, and my mother-in-law agreed, smiling nastily. It was ridiculous. I knew it was just an empty threat. I sighed and decided to confront them with something. When they saw it, both froze. "You can't be serious. You can't divorce me. I'm already single. My name is Avery. I've been married for 5 years to Daniel, who I met when I was in college. We married after a strong proposal from him, but our marriage wasn't exactly what I expected. Daniel always put his mom first. Whenever we had to make any decisions, big or small, he'd say, 'I'll ask my mom.' From our honeymoon destination to choosing a dentist, even down to the color of our curtains, he always consulted her and followed her advice. At first, I was concerned, but I ignored it. While our marriage wasn't perfect, it wasn't terrible either. Daniel helped with simple chores like taking out the trash, even if he complained. On weekends, we'd go out or take short trips, and he always celebrated our birthdays and anniversaries with gifts. As long as I didn't rock the boat with his mom, things seemed fine. But after Daniel's father passed away, things started to change. "Hey, Avery, can we talk for a minute?" "Sure, what's up?" Daniel asked, sitting down during dinner. "Can we move in with my mom?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Why now?" "I've been thinking about it ever since my dad passed. Mom's alone now, and I'm worried about her." "I understand, but she can manage on her own. I can still visit her regularly." Daniel was serious. "If you don't want to live with her, I'll divorce you." "You're serious?" "Yes. Let me think about it." After a lot of talking, we decided to move in with my mother-in-law. It wasn't an easy choice, but I was pregnant, and I thought having Daniel around would be better for the baby. I reluctantly agreed, hoping it wouldn't change my relationship with him, but the reality was much harder. Once we moved in, my mother-in-law, Belle, started to make my life miserable. Instead of helping me with my pregnancy, she ignored me and spent all day out with friends. When she came home, she'd criticize my housework. When I was young, I did everything perfectly, even when I was sick, she'd say, pointing out things like water stains or wrinkled laundry. She expected at least 3 side dishes for every meal and made me redo chores, even if I was feeling sick. I couldn't take it anymore and complained to Daniel, but he always sided with his mom. "She might be harsh, but it's your fault for not doing things right. Don't blame her." "But there are days when it's hard to even stand up. I can't do everything perfectly every day." Daniel didn't get it. "My mom did it all when she was pregnant with me, so you should be able to do it too. I need your mom to help out with the chores while I'm sick. This apartment is ours, and she doesn't pay for anything. You're the one who agreed to have her live with us. If you have a problem with it, we can get a divorce." He seemed sure I'd never leave him. I sighed at Daniel's smirk and his dismissive smile. He wasn't like this before we moved in together. Honestly, with his attitude, my mother-in-law's behavior, and my health issues, I was starting to feel overwhelmed in our marriage. One day, as usual, my mother-in-law went out with her friends, leaving me alone in the house to do the chores. I was feeling better than usual, so I took my time. I thought it would be a nice, peaceful day until my mother-in-law came home and screamed, "Belle, what's wrong with you?" "Everything is wrong. My clothes are ruined." "What?" "But I washed them like usual." "These are expensive clothes. They need to be hand-washed. How dare you put them in the washing machine? Look at this mess. These were my favorite clothes. What are you going to do about it?" "But Belle, you didn't tell me they needed hand-washing." "You're supposed to know that without me telling you." My mother-in-law was in a complete frenzy, and just then, Daniel walked in from work. "I'm home. What's going on?" "Welcome, Daniel. Avery ruined my clothes. They were so expensive." My mother-in-law cut me off, running over to Daniel. "This is the one you wear a lot, right?" Daniel looked at me as she handed him the clothes. "Avery, you can't even do laundry properly?" "Well, your mom didn't tell me they had to be hand-washed." It's my fault for not checking, but Belle should have said something too. But if you're going to act like this, I'm divorcing you. I don't want a wife who can't even do basic chores. Get out of here. Then Daniel pulled out a piece of paper from his bag. It was a divorce notice, and it was already filled out with his section completed. He slammed it on the table and smiled at me like he was amused. You should think about your attitude from now on. Then he grabbed my mother-in-law and started to leave. Hey, where are you going? We're going out to eat. I don't want my mom eating that cold, disgusting food, and I don't want to eat it either. With that, he left, and my mother-in-law followed behind him, casting a victorious glance back at me. I had been holding back for a long time, thinking it was for the sake of my baby, but when I saw the smug look on my mother-in-law's face, I couldn't take it anymore. I walked into the living room, looked at the divorce papers on the table, and smiled to myself. You're wrong, Daniel. I'm the one who's going to divorce you. I felt a mix of uncontrollable anger and sadness. Although Daniel always put his mother first, he was never the type to make fun of me. How had things gotten this bad? I just stared at the divorce papers, feeling helpless and unable to do anything about it. Then, my phone vibrated. It was my mom calling. Hi, Avery, how are you doing? Hi, Mom, it's been a while. You haven't contacted us lately, and your father and I are worried about you. I'm sorry, I've been busy, but I'm okay. When I heard her cheerful voice, something in me broke, and I started to cry. I hadn't realized how much I needed to hear her voice. Mom. Avery, what's wrong? What happened? I could barely speak as the tears started to flow uncontrollably. All the emotions I had been holding in suddenly exploded. I told my mom everything that had happened. After I finished, my mom was even more upset than I was. It's okay if you get a divorce. Don't worry about raising the baby. Your father and I will support you. We've raised a child before, and look how well you turned out. We'll handle it, she said, trying to make me feel better. And actually, this might be good timing. Your father and I are planning to build a new house. I called today to tell you about it. I was shocked. I couldn't quite understand what she was saying at first. My mom excitedly described the house they were planning to build, 2 stories with a garden. Even though her tone was playful and full of excitement, she was already talking about the land, floor plans, and costs. Everything was ready to go. They just needed to sign the contract and start construction. Would you like to live with us, Avery? Well, if you're getting a divorce, you'll need a place to stay. With the baby coming, it'll be easier for us to help you out here. Her offer felt like pity, and I felt a bit ashamed to depend on my parents at my age, but I was grateful. I had quit my job when I became pregnant and wasn't sure how I'd manage to find a new place to live, especially with the baby on the way. Living alone didn't seem like an option anymore. I accepted her offer and decided to move in with her when the new house was ready, but I still felt guilty, so I decided to put a down payment on the house with the money I had saved before I got pregnant. This way, I could contribute and buy it together with them. Over the next few months, I quietly went through with the divorce without Daniel or my mother-in-law knowing. Once I made the decision, I felt a huge sense of relief. I didn't care what anyone else thought. My mother-in-law became even more critical and selfish, and Daniel continued to use me, taking advantage of me and looking down on me. The small bit of affection I had for him faded completely in those months. He and my mother-in-law stayed together, while I stayed at my parents' house, preparing to leave. I enjoyed discussing new furniture and baby items for the house with my parents, something I hadn't done without stress before. My mother-in-law wasn't there to criticize my taste in furniture or add expensive things to my shopping cart without asking. I forgot how enjoyable stress-free shopping could be. I was excited about my new life. When the new house was finished and it was finally time to move in, I filed for divorce at the city office. Daniel had left the divorce papers on the table that day we argued about my mother-in-law's clothes. After they left, I grabbed the papers and kept them in a safe place, thinking I might need them later. At first, I had hoped we would have a proper discussion about it, since we had been a reasonably successful couple before all of this, but now, I was ready to move forward. I decided to leave without saying anything because of how my mother-in-law mistreated me every day and how Daniel never listened to me. He didn't defend me and kept threatening divorce whenever we argued. A few days before moving out, I filed the divorce papers, and they were officially accepted. Now, I was a free woman, and I felt lighter. I moved into my parents' new house, and for the first time in a long while, I was truly enjoying my life. But one day, an unexpected visitor arrived. Hey, Avery, you should have invited us over as soon as you got settled. That's right, you're treating us terribly. My mother-in-law and Daniel showed up at the door. I didn't know how they found out, but they barged in without permission. It's a nice house with a garden, which is rare for you. I wonder where my room is, my mother-in-law said as if nothing had happened. I know you're a useless wife who can't even handle housework, but I guess you can be useful once in a while, she added. I forced myself to stifle a laugh. They didn't realize we were already divorced. I'm not your wife anymore, I told them calmly. What, are you crazy? We're married. You're my wife, Daniel snapped. No, I'm single. I'm a stranger to you now, I replied. Please leave right now, I said, pointing to the door. What are you talking about? My mother-in-law asked. I filed for the divorce a while ago, and it was accepted. We're no longer married, I explained. Daniel seemed confused and didn't believe me. I don't know what you're upset about, but I'll apologize. Let's work this out, he said. I don't care about your apology, I responded. We're already divorced. I showed him the divorce certificate that I had kept safe. Daniel's face went pale as he read it. When did this happen? He asked, stammering. You signed the papers yourself, I reminded him, the day I accidentally ruined the clothes. You left completed divorce papers on the table. Daniel insisted the papers were invalid, but I reminded him of everything he had said. I had been recording our conversations and keeping a diary, which I now played back for him. There were recordings of his and his mother's words, including him saying, if you serve food like this, I'm divorcing you. They stood frozen in shock. Since you two are strangers now, you need to leave. I never invited you in. If you don't leave, I'll call the police, I said. They panicked and rushed out, and I locked the door behind them. It turns out that after finding out my parents and I had bought a new house, Daniel and his mother moved out of their place, ended their lease, and struggled to find somewhere new to live. Their life together wasn't going as smoothly as before. My mother-in-law, who had forced me to do all the housework, didn't want to do it herself, and Daniel, who wasn't used to it, had to take on the chores. She also told friends and relatives about moving to a luxurious new house, but in reality, she ended up in a generic apartment. This led to rumors about her being dishonest. The stress caused her to lash out at Daniel, and they argued constantly, with no one else to vent to. My mother-in-law took her frustrations out on him, and their relationship became even more strained. As for me, I was happily living in the new house with my parents and my healthy baby boy, who was born safely. My parents were supporting me, and I planned to return to work when my son was older. My goal was to raise my son in a home full of love and happiness, and every day I worked hard to make that dream a reality. I was finally living a peaceful and fulfilling life. Music? Thank you.